guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. The British Grand Prix at Silverstone has come to a close, and what could be said about that race? I mean, really, what could be said about that race? It's just been astonishing, hasn't it? Changeable weather conditions, underdogs doing extremely well, penalties, maybe sometimes harsh, depending on which side of the camp you're on. Yeah, it just had everything, didn't it? Silverstone once again delivers the goods. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points based on their overall race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points. They're sometimes off if some drivers do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points. Those drivers do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Cruel Room standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is right now, and based on how well they did this weekend, can you see them climbing that order? Can you see them tumbling down? There was a tale of two fortunes once again this year. This race once again threw up the inconsistencies with the weather and things. Some drivers got it wrong, some drivers got it really right. Strategies played a part as well, so I'm expecting this order to mix up quite substantially, but as you can see, a pecking order is emerging. The ones at the top are likely to remain there, the ones at the bottom are only likely to sink further. We'll take a look at the team standings as well. They're also on the screen for you. Of course, these are accumulated by what each driver scores during their respective weekend, and I can independently manufacture the results in my own way as well. So if I want to give them a plus bonus points, because I think the drivers are under-delivering for what the teams are giving them, I can do that, and I can also minus the points as well, as you can see there. All the minus points and plus points that I've awarded so far this season are still to come off those tallies, so at the end of the season we will find out the true pecking order. But yes, Ferrari and RB, it's not looking good for them, is it? Without further ado then, we'll kick things off with the race winner then, shall we? I think we shall. It is, of course, Lando Norris in that mighty McLaren. What could be said about his race weekend overall? Once again, the McLaren drivers not getting qualifying right. Big issue that for me. Always. The quickest car, it should have been pole position, but it was not. Both drivers failing to improve on their second push laps, and Lando Norris didn't line up on the front row, did he, as a result of that? So that's a shame. But the race itself came to him, came his way, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's what doesn't really matter about what happened at the start, does it? Because then the rain came, and they were going on. Some went on slicks to start, and it was too early, and all this. Like, then we had the virtual safety car, then we had another virtual safety car, and all blah 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 blah. Then we had a couple of safety cars, and the safety car infringement, of course, for Oscar Piastri meant that when Oscar came in to serve his pit stop, he had a 10-second time penalty, and that is what got Lando from P2 up into P1. And then from there, he secured the victory. So, Lando this weekend had a solid enough job. He got himself into second place, where that McLaren car should have been as an absolute minimum. Promoted to P1 as a result of his teammate's penalty. Without that, he would not have been victorious this time around. There's not really much to be said about Lando's race. I think it was okay. You know, he wasn't making the mistakes like we saw at Brazil last year, for example, where he was just throwing it away. This time around, he was more controlled, a great drive. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy he won his own Grand Prix. I'm not disputing that at all. But he was lucky with his teammate's penalty. I'm not saying lucky as in terms of Oscar didn't deserve it. We're going to cover Oscar in a minute. But Lando this time around, it would have just been second best. He would have been second best McLaren once again. But yeah, qualifying let him down. Race pace was okay. He was struggling in the first stint, it must be said. But then once the safety cars came into play and bunched the pack up, his pace tended to go with the flow from there. So Lando Norris this weekend, I have gone for 8.5. 8.5 to Lando Norris. I've knocked him 1.5 points off for the poor qualifying and the poor pace at the start of the race, but I've not been overly critical of him because I am happy he's won his home Grand Prix, and he said he would trade all his other wins and podiums that he's ever had in Formula One just for this one moment, and he's got it. So yeah, well done Lando Norris. 8.5 to him. I think that's a fair score. Maybe generous by a half a point there, but I'm not too far away. He's put in a great performance and deserved victory because ultimately his teammate crumbled. In a sense, anyway. But yeah, Lando Norris wouldn't have been victor today without his teammate's penalty, but nonetheless, a great performance, and he kept himself clean. 8.5 to Lando Norris. In second place, we come to Oscar Piastri. What's your favourite pastry? Well, A little bit flaky once again, wasn't it? A flaky pastry for Oscar Pastry because he didn't get his lap together in qualifying, so didn't line up in pole position like he should have done. Again, that second push lap was slower than his first. And in the race itself, he was driving so well, controlled 15 seconds ahead of everyone else by the time the first safety car came out, and bunched up the field, no problem. Then got a great break away from there. Drove really smooth in that virtual, like, what was it, 1 or 2 laps before we had another safety car intervention, of course. And he got over a 2-second gap there, so perfect, well done, well done. And then the second safety car came in, and Oscar stomped on the brakes and caused a bit of a bottleneck behind, shall we say. It looked like he was accelerating, and then he stopped, and then, of course, that led to evasive action behind from Max Verstappen, who briefly overtook Oscar. And also led to the cars behind having to slow up and bunch up as well. Nick Hulkenberg said after the race, and was talking to Oscar Piastri about it as well in the cool-down room, wasn't he? He was saying, well, yeah, I had to back up and I had to swerve to avoid Lance, and then Gasly had to avoid me behind, so yeah, it was slow. So it's like, yeah, fuck off, Oscar. And I agree, it was Oscar's fault. He did slow down excessively down a straight after he'd just been accelerating. And I think when the safety car lights went out, of course, then everyone thought, well, Oscar's going. And then he slowed down. So I think the penalty was deserved myself, and I'm probably seeming harsh or unfair by that. But when you've got the conditions that you've got, where it's tricky conditions, you've got very limited visibility, if at all any. We saw with the Antonelli accident how little visibility there was. Hadjar ploughing into the back of Antonelli, of course. You know, that could have been a nasty accident there. If the drivers weren't as spaced out as they were, because there was quite a gap from where Lando was to where Lance was. So without that gap, I think Lance could have gone into the back of Lando, and it could have had a massive chain reaction. It could have been a nasty accident. So I agree with the penalty that Oscar got this weekend. Whether he agrees with it, whether McLaren agree with it, whether you lot agree with it or not, I don't care. The commentators on Channel 4, can we just say hallelujah Channel 4, no fucking David Croft, but yeah, the Channel 4 commentators are like, that's really harsh, that's really harsh. I'm like, it isn't. He stopped on a fucking straight. Like, that could have been nasty. And it could have hurt all sorts of people and caused massive accidents. It would have been a red flag. And it just would have been a mess. So I agree with the penalty. Shoot me. But I agree with the penalty. So yeah, Oscar Piastri this weekend threw away a victory by a little silly error. I mean, you can't stomp on the brakes that hard down a straight, can you? But that's life, isn't it? For Oscar Piastri, I have been harsh, but I think it's 3 points. It's all he's getting, 3 points. Threw away a victory this weekend, and I am punishing him for that. It should have been victory. It should have been more points in the championship to him over his teammate Lando, but instead he loses out. And only the sheer dominance of the McLaren car means he doesn't lose any further places by serving a 10-second penalty in the pit stops. I mean, that's crazy. 10 seconds added to your race time, and you still finish second. Mad stuff. So yeah, Oscar Piastri gets 3 points from me. He can thank me for him. It's not an of the week. But yeah, I do hold him responsible for the incident, and I think it were a bit silly. Finishing in 3rd place, we come to Nico Hulkenberg. Oh, I needed that, and Nico needed that, and I it's been a long time since I cried, and I would admit I cried when sorry, I'm going over the line, I'm getting a bit emotional now about it, actually. Yeah, Nico Hulkenberg, P3. I don't think I've got words, to be honest with you. I'm just so happy, I'm relieved for him. Did we ever expect this when he went into that Sauber car for 2025 after leaving Haas that looked like they were improving? Sauber were doing next to nothing all season. But he has worked with that team. The team have made progress themselves. And it just proves that the drivers were shite last year. There were more in that car last year, I'm convinced. You don't make this much of a massive step up in performance in a regulation. You know, they've clearly found something in the car, don't get me wrong. But yeah, this weekend it looked like it was going to be a struggle for them. Both out in Q1. Nico Hulkenberg lining up 19th on the grid and was obviously the last car on the grid because of a pit lane start for Colapinto, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, so it was 19th on the grid, and we didn't really expect much of it. He didn't pit for the slick tyres like everyone else did. He stayed on the inters. That netted him to P11 instantly. Then he was fighting on the fringes of the points, and then other cars came in, and he still stayed out, and that got him into the top 5. He was battling with Lance Stroll, wasn't he? Who was then 4th. Then we had the spin for Max Verstappen behind safety car on the second safety car. That then put him 4th. Then he got around Lance Stroll at last for 3rd. And then we had him just like massively under pressure from Hamilton for the remainder of the race. And then it was time for pitting for the softs, the slick tyres. Hamilton went for softs. Hulkenberg went for mediums. The team went for mediums. And he was able to get a really good outlap, and that gave him a bit of a cushion from being within DRS window to suddenly having a 6-second gap. And then from there, he was able to maintain that. It sometimes went to a 7-second gap. It sometimes went to a 5-second gap. And he just held on for the podium, didn't he? He held on for the podium, and all the commentators were saying, "Oh, we've got 3 laps left, and it could be the first ever podium for Nico." I'm like, shut up. Shut up. We know what happens with Nico. We know it goes wrong. We know he has a hydraulics issue like he did at Singapore. We know he has contact like he did at Brazil in 2012. We have some sort of unfortunate thing go wrong with him that means he doesn't get a podium, but this time it wasn't to be. And the little car that could, the green mean machine, crosses the line in P3, and Hulkenberg, after 239 starts in Formula 1, secures his first ever podium, and I am unbelievably pleased for him. And do you want to know what makes it even more funny and strange and unusual? I was having a bit of a chat with my friend on Snapchat before the race began, 35 minutes before the race even started to be exact, and I said to him, wouldn't it be ironic if Hulkenberg got a podium this weekend with the changeable conditions? And he did just that. Should have gone to the bookies, shouldn't I? I should have gone to the bookies. So yeah, I am thrilled for Nick Hulkenberg. I don't know if my voice, I don't know, but I'm not overly, because I know I'll get emotional, but yeah, it really deserves. A person I've never even met in my life, and I've never been so happy for someone. If anyone hates that result of Hulkenberg in P3, then give your head a wobble. That's all I will say. Nick Hulkenberg scores 15 points. That's what he gets for P3. That's what he's getting on the crawl room. 15 points, because he deserves it. I don't care about qualifying. The race is where your race is run, and he drove incredibly well under maximum amounts of pressure at quite a lot of occasions as well. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. So yeah, congratulations, Nico Hulkenberg. He's done it. Finishing in 4th place, we come to Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari, looking like he was going to be snatching a podium place pretty much all weekend long, to be fair. They had some good pace in the slick conditions, in the dry conditions, and then in the wet he was really struggling, but as it was drying, you could see the pace of Hamilton come back. They were always saying that the Ferrari car is difficult in wet conditions. We look at where Leclerc ended up. We saw him having a couple of offs, didn't we? Hamilton kept it on the road, but did struggle for pace on occasions. Not going to hold that against him too much, though. As we said, that Ferrari looked like a bit of a pig in the really wet conditions, but as it dried, he got the confidence in the car, was starting to put Hulkenberg under attack, and then he was one of the first to pit. Like, bang, let's get into the pits, let's get some soft tyres on, see if we can get that advantage. He had a small off on his outlap, and that meant that the cushion, instead of being within the DRS window, meant that Hulkenberg came out with a nice cushion of like 8 seconds, something like that, which he eroded quickly to 6 once obviously Hulkenberg was struggling with his cold tyres and got him up to temp. The gap never really then fell below 5 seconds. It was always controlled from there. And Hamilton, admittedly, 4th place for him is a great result in that Ferrari. Qualifying was good, decent, respectable. It could have been a little bit more, but just caught the grass, didn't he? Just in that final sector, just going into that final chicane and then coming round to the final corner to cross the line. That probably cost him a 10th or 2, and that probably cost him a P3, P2 finish even, start I should say, on the grid. So yeah, shame in that respect, but also a good improvement. Started 4th, finished 4th, fair effort, but it could have been just a little bit more. 8 to Lewis Hamilton. I think that was a good race though overall from him. Solid. Looked more comfortable in the car when the car came to him. We'll see how he gets on at Spa in a couple of weeks' time, but yeah, 8 points to Hamilton. a solid weekend. Securing 5th place, a top 5 finish for the pole sitter, of course. Max Verstappen did a mighty lap in qualifying, but his car was very much set up for a 1-lap pace in dry conditions. It was going to struggle in the wet. It was always looking nervous on the rear, wasn't it? And then as the safety car ended that second time, coming out the corner after the hanger straight, he just got it slightly wrong, and the arse end just flicked out, didn't it? Slid sideways, regained the place and regained the track to restart in 10th. And then from there he was stuck in 10th throughout the most of it. And then as the drying conditions came again, the pace of the car came back, and he was able to make his way past the likes of Stroll and Gasly, Russell even as well. Who else was up there? It was Albon. So there was quite a few cars he was able to get round and through and secured a top 5 finish. I think that was a good recovery from the spin he had. Had he not had that spin, I think we could have been seeing him P3, you know, even with the tricky car and a tricky rear end. I think we could have seen him on the podium today. Yeah, it certainly wasn't going to be anything for a win. But yeah, it certainly was a podium potential there. So P5, a good recovery from that spin. But without that spin, we could have seen a podium. 6 to Max, uncharacteristic mistake in the wet, let's say that. Normally a wet master, just shows how difficult that Red Bull is. But yeah, 6 to Max, knocking a few points off of that spin. It cost him a podium today, and that's that. Securing 6th place, we come to Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Looking like they were going to be absolutely nowhere all race long, didn't we? We thought they were going to be lining up on the back row of the grid and finishing down there. But Gasly pulled out a masterclass in qualifying, not just to get into Q2, but also to get into Q3. Yeah, he lined up 10th. Well, he didn't. He ended up lining up 8th with the penalties ahead, of course. But he qualified himself 10th. But it doesn't matter. There was nothing else in that car. He did a fantastic effort to get where he got. Started the race in 8th, was able to make up a couple of places off the line and got himself into around that P6 sort of area. Fighting with the likes of Hülkenberg that had come through, and Stroll, and of course Verstappen after he had his spin, and the Williams cars were up there as well. But in the end, he was P6 throughout most of it, P5 in fact, and then obviously Verstappen in the closing stages came through. Tumbled to P7, didn't he? And then in the last lap itself of the race down the hanger straight, he was able to get the best of Lance Stroll, who'd worn out his soft tyres, and down the hanger straight got himself that P6 on the final lap. So a great effort by Gasly to pick up another couple of crucial points for the Alpine squad in the closing stages. Great race by Gasly, really carrying that team, as we know. But it was nice to see him have a smile on his face as well after the race itself, because we've seen him pretty miserable, dejected, not looking like he gives a shit. But this is the first time we've actually seen him care somewhat, and he delivered a great result. 9.5 to Pierre Gasly. I think that was a really good effort today. Really, really enjoyed him watching him race. He had a great racecraft, and yeah. Can't really fault a thing. 9.5 to Pierre Gasly. Next up we come to Lance Stroll, the driver that was running around in the podium places throughout a lot of that race, to be fair. Maybe more laps than he deserved credit for, actually. They went for a 2-stop strategy, which was let's get him on the slicks to start with, when it was just that little window. That little window that was just ready for slick tyres, and he put the softs on. They only did about 4 or 5 laps on him, but that was able to carve their way through from P11 up to P6. Then they pitted for the Inters, and they were first to adopt that, so then they got the leapfrog over everyone else that then stopped after and copied their, you know, what they did. And that got him into P3, and that was a really, really good strategy by the Aston Martin squad, so fair play for that. They didn't do the same with Alonso, but they gave it a go with Stroll at least. Then the race itself, he was running around in P3, then you could tell he was struggling because this couple of second gap that he had over Hülkenberg was quickly eroded, and yet it did take Hülkenberg a few laps to get around Lance, but once he got around Lance, it wasn't long then before Hamilton came knocking, he glided his way through, and then he just tumbled down the order from there, was losing like a second a lap over the cars that had just overtaken him, and then he was slowly caught up by the likes of Gasly, but they couldn't get around him. Max got around the pair of them, and then, of course, on the final lap, Gasly got around Lance Stroll. So, yeah, a solid race weekend overall by Lance. Qualifying was poor, but again, qualifying goes out the window when you do something like this, and the strategy team has to be commended for what they did, because that put Lance in this position. So, well done to them for that. And Lance Stroll, it's 7.5. 7.5 to Lance. I'd have given him a little bit more, had he'd just been able to hold off Gasly at the final stages. But as it was, still picked up some solid points for the Aston Martin squad. Thoroughly deserving. Well done. Great effort. 7.5 to Lance. Next up, I'm picking a handful of points up for the Williams squad in the first time in a while. It is, of course, Alex Albon in the Williams. Yeah, initially, great pace. They managed to get themselves well into the top 6. They were 5th and 6th at one stage, actually, weren't they? And did a really good job in that. And then they didn't pit early enough for the second set of inters. Lost a lot of time as a result of that. And then tumbled to like 11th and 12th. Climbing the way back up here. I'm not really sure how Albon got here, but he obviously got it fair and square. Of course, we were watching the battle for the lead and the battle for the podium, and you know what we were all looking at, so don't blame me. But Alex Albon this weekend, difficult qualifying 14th place. The race itself came to him after it had initially got away from the Williams team. Yeah, good effort, I think, overall, and it's a solid 7 for that reason. Solid 7 to Alex Albon. I think that's a fair score, fair assessment of his race, and deserving so of some points. It's been a pointless exercise for the last couple of rounds, hasn't it, for the Williams squad, having a lot of reliability issues, but obviously the cooler temperatures here at Silverstone have improved that. And yeah, 7 points to Alex, nice handful of points, but it could have been a weekend of what could have been. It could have been them on the podium, you know. Yeah, we wouldn't have said that, would we? State kicked me with the arse Sauber getting a podium before Williams this season. Bold. 7-2, Alex Albon. 9th place, we come to the second of the Aston Martins in Fernando Alonso. Yeah, tricky day at the office for Alonso. He came over the radio during that safety car. He clearly had a look at the timing screen and gone, so who ahead needs to pit? And like, just Ocon in P7, mate. Everyone else has pitted. Why do you always do this for me? You never put me on the right strategy. And I thought, yeah, he's seen Lance up in P4 and gone, fuck this. So yeah, Fernando Alonso had a difficult run of it. He was always on the fringe of the points, but could never really do anything from there. As we saw with Lance Stroll, the Aston Martin clearly not got the pace that it should have had, but the wet equaled it out, so as it got drier, it got more difficult. But yeah, overall, I think Alonso deserves 6.5 for his efforts this weekend. I don't think he did anything really wrong. He didn't do anything really right. Just an okay performance. Could have maybe got, ahead of a couple of other cars. I'm not really sure. Just a difficult one to judge. But yeah, 6.5 to Alonso, I think, is a fair score for what was an okay performance, but nothing outstanding or exceptional. Picking up the final points paying position, we come to the first of the Mercedes. Wow. First of the Mercedes in P10. Jesus Christ, what a fall from grace they've had. Can you remember they just won? They won a couple of races ago, and now where have they gone? Oh, here they are, P10. Great stuff. George of the Russell, of course, is who we're talking to. Yeah, he went on the slick tyres far too early. It was his choice to go on the slicks, and they were like, look, no, we don't want to try it because it'd be suicide. And then like a lap later, he's like, no, I want to try it. He's like, okay, then, mate, we'll do it. Did it, and it was wrong. He had a massive spin at Maggots and Beckett's complex and had a lovely 720 pirouette, pointed in a straight line, carried on driving. Fair play, lad. Keep going. And, yeah, picks up a point. Yeah, that was it, really. Picks up a point. Avoids an of the week by this much, because I do admit that it was a ballsy move going to the slicks as quickly and as soonly as he did. But, yeah, it's 3 points. 3 points to Russell. A difficult day at the office, but when they pitted for the slick tyres anyway, they're only in P7, so they didn't have the pace anyway, so try something. Didn't quite work. Lost out on a couple of points, but nothing major. Yeah, 3 points to George of the Russell. It can thank me for them. Finishing in 11th place and just missing out on the points paying positions, we come to Ollie Behrman in the first of the Hassers.
It's such a shame there was a lack of British drivers in the 2000s. As the only one who failed to score any points, I was the only one Josh could choose.
And there we have it. Anthony Davidson of the week to, of course, Ollie Behrman, a Brit, awarding a Brit and of the week at the British Grand Prix. Well done indeed. It's a shame I've had to use Anthony Davidson, but who else in the noughties was a British driver that was in a difficult car? There wasn't anyone, was there? There was Button. I mean, they could have maybe used Arista, but Arista was 10s, so maybe not just yet. But, it was a difficult one to pick. There was only really Hamilton, Button, and, of course, Davidson. I don't think there's any other Brits, were they, in the noughties? So, yeah, difficult one, but nonetheless, Davidson is the of the week. I do feel a little bit harsh of giving him that, but nonetheless, it is him, and it has been awarded to Ollie Behrman for a silly error in free practice 3 where he locked up the brakes going into the pit lane and crashed on his way into the pit lane under a red flag as well, of course. So got himself a 10th-place grid drop. Now, I normally say that it's harsh to give position drops like that, but honestly, I don't think so. A marshal could have been stood there, could have been anything, could have killed someone. So yeah, a stupid error, a deserving penalty. And then it sent even more cruel at the fact he lined up P8 on the grid, wasn't it? And then 10 places takes you all the way down to the back of the grid, my flower. I'm afraid that is it, sunshine for you. The race itself was sort of going up and down, weren't it? They didn't really have the overall pace for anything. But they could have scraped a couple of points. And then he made contact with his teammate. Now, I thought it was going to be Ocon making contact with Behrman, but it was the other way around this time. Ollie Behrman, a little bit of a tricky move, and dove it up the inside of Ocon and made contact with his teammate. And a synchronised pirouette for the Haas squad. I enjoyed that very much. I don't think the team did, though. Yeah, I don't really know what could say. It has to be an of the week for that. He's made contact with his teammate. Also tried a ridiculous move around the outside of Tsunoda, and then Tsunoda got penalised for it. I mean, Christ. I mean, I know Tsunoda's struggling, but that wasn't very fair to give Tsunoda a penalty for that. That was on Behrman. So, yeah, a couple of loads of contact. Could have been points without that. Should have been points without that. And then without the 10th-place grid drop, who knows where he could have been. You know, if he'd have started P8, he could have had a Gasly kind of race, could have had a Stroll kind of race, could have even had an Hülkenberg kind of race. So everything was on the table there. A lot could have happened, but instead he threw it all away. Has to be an of the week for Ollie Behrman. A shame, but deserved. 12th place, we come to Carlos Sainz, smooth operator. Oh, smoothish. Smoothish. Yeah, difficult one for Carlos Sainz. Difficult day at the office once again for Carlos. Strategy wasn't there by any stretch of the imagination this weekend for Williams. They were always playing catch-up and letting someone else do the move first rather than them giving it a go. And sometimes being proactive was the advantageous thing to do rather than being reactive. Sainz P12, lined up P11. I think he got promoted to P10 though, didn't he, with the penalties ahead, so whatever. But yeah, ultimately, difficult day at the office for Sainz. No points for the Williams car once again off Sainz, when it should have been a double points finish, looking at how it unfolded for other cars and other drivers, other teams. Yeah, shame. 5 points to Carlos Sainz. I think that's about fair, really. And also, just like to add with Ollie Behrman, I think he's under investigation at the time of recording. I've not got time to be waiting for him to get a penalty. So if he does drop down the order, that's why I've put him in 11th. If he ends up 5-second time penalty, he's down somewhere else. But he's not in the points, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, Carlos Sainz, 5 points to him, middle of the road. Average performance in an average weekend. Oh, looking for some P13. We, of course, come to Esti Bestie. Oh, God, Esti Bestie to you. Ain't like Esti Bestie, oh, con. Yeah, what could be said? A difficult day at the office for Esti Bestie. Not really sure what could be said, to be honest. Just a tough day, really. Qualifying wasn't as good as his teammate, but of course ended up starting ahead of his teammate due to his 10th-place grid drop. The race itself didn't really do anything right, didn't really do anything wrong. Again, Haas were a bit like Williams, always waiting for someone else to pull the pin, and then that meant that they lost out as a result of just reacting to what everyone else does. Already lost that time by being second on the inters or second on the slicks, and just didn't work out too well. They were fighting around the sort of latter half of the points battle, and then he had a contact from his teammate, which sent him into a spin, damaged his wheel rim as well, didn't it? The wheel cover came off, so that wouldn't have helped with aero. Probably a bit of floor damage as well as a result of that. And here he is finishing P13. Middle of row 5 to Esti Bestie as well. It wasn't his fault, at least, that he got hit by his teammate, but I said it were coming, didn't I? I just didn't expect it to be Behrman hitting Ocon. I very much expected it to be the other way around. Cardinal sin that, but it wasn't Ocon's fault this time around. 5 to Esti Bestie, that's that. Tough day again for Haas on a weekend that could have been points. 14th place, we come to Sha-la-la. Oh, sacre bleu, sha-la-la-la-la. And he avoids an of the week by this much. This much. And do you want to know what avoids it? Because I've not got any left to give by the time I finish this episode. So he's lucky I have used them all up. Very lucky indeed. So yes, for Charles Leclerc, he's getting 2 points, and that's all he's getting. A very tough day at the office. Fair and square beat by Hamilton. It was like just a difficult day, really. I don't fully blame Leclerc, and my reasoning for not giving an of the week is the fact that he stayed out one of the last to be on the intermediates as the slick tyre runners came in for that final stint. sort of put in P4 briefly, and then he just lost all the time by being on the inters, pitted for the mediums, and then he had a spin on those, and it was just a bloody mess, wasn't it? So yeah, Charles Leclerc this weekend, beaten by his teammate in qualifying. He wasn't very happy with that, he just wasn't happy with his lap in general, to be honest. And then the race itself, initially was the better of the Ferraris, but that quickly slipped away, and then it just became a pig of a car to drive. He was struggling with it, spinning off everywhere, lost a load of time at the same corner that Max Verstappen spun, but he had a full pirouette, drove it into the gravel, then had to drive the gravel, then had to find his way back onto the track. It was just a really, really difficult day at the office for Leclerc, and that's why it's 2 points. Avoidance of the week, like I say, by a minuscule amount. But, yeah, shame. Shame to see Leclerc once again struggling at Silverstone. This happened last year, didn't it? Crazy stuff. 2 to Leclerc. Then we come to the last of the finishers, and it is the second of the Red Bulls, of course, in Yuki Tsunoda.
Racing for one season with Super Aguri, I had opportunity to score points on a couple of occasions. Sadly, my pit crew not being ready for me in Canada and an engine failure in Bahrain put paid to that.
And there we have it of the week to Yuki Tsunoda. I think I made a mistake in last episode saying he's on his final warning. I think I've looked back and I think he's only on 4, so this is now 5. So if that's the case, he gets an Anthony Davidson of the week. If I've got that wrong, then he's been disqualified and he should have had a hey, you've been disqualified, you bastard, from one of the previous drivers. But either way, we'll find out in edit, guys. I haven't got a clue. It's my series. Someone else keeps a track of the scores for me. You know it's Dan. Dan, keep a track for me. Keep a track for me. Ring me now. What's he doing? But I think it's an of the week. I think this is his 5th one now, so I think it's his final warning now. I don't think I've disqualified him yet. If I have disqualified him, then I've put the hey, you've been disqualified in, and I've got this bit wrong. But nonetheless, he deserves an of the week or a disqualification, whatever it is that's coming up here, because it was once again a poor performance from Tsunoda. I just touched on it briefly with Behrman. I don't hold Tsunoda responsible for the contact that he had with Behrman. Behrman was trying to go around the outside and then tried to cut in on Tsunoda. Where could Tsunoda go in that situation? Couldn't go anywhere. He was to the inside, he was following the natural racing line, and Behrman just tried to stuff it round the outside and then crowd Tsunoda into braking. Well, no. So I think that's a 10-second time penalty that was bullshit. Penalty points are going to come with that as well. I just find it so unfair. Find it really unfair that that's going to happen to Tsunoda because that wasn't his fault. But the race itself, apart from that 10-second time penalty, was still a chuffing shambles, wasn't it? Last of the runners, he was about 10 seconds behind the next car. This is before we added the 10 seconds on for the pit stop. Just very difficult day. Very difficult day once again. Qualified himself in P12, elevated to P11. So I thought, well, that's something. That's like equal best qualifying he's ever had while he's been at the Red Bull car. But then it came swiftly undone again, didn't it? So yeah, big disappointment to Tsunoda this week, earning himself another of the week / disqualification, depending on what happens. But yeah, very difficult day at the office for Yuki Tsunoda. A poor performance, once again. Then we come to the DNFers in this race. The first on this list, of course, the last to retire in the race was Andrea Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Big shame for Antonelli. He'd, of course, suffered that 3-place grid drop as a result of the contact he'd made in the previous race, with taking Max Verstappen out, of course. A deserved penalty. He didn't get qualifying quite right, so ended up qualifying mid-pack. The race itself, though, we don't really care about how it worked in terms of whether he pitted or not. He did pit, though. We know he did. And that was a difficult situation to be in. Ended up down at the back of the grid on slick tyres that weren't working. But it doesn't matter because in the end he was taken out by Isaac Hadjar, who couldn't see him going into Copse. I think Antonelli had to lift off because there was a moment for someone else up ahead, so he was like, whoa, a bit nervous as to where that car was going to go, if it was going to spin, and Isaac Hadjar just couldn't see him and ploughed straight into the back of him. Caused massive rear floor damage. They kept it going for a few laps, but then decided that the floor damage was too excessive to continue and would have probably meant that the amount of downforce he lost could have just created another accident in conditions like that. So retired the car for safety reasons, which I don't blame him, to be honest. Antonelli, tough day at the office once again. It's 2 points to him out of a maximum of 5 a retirement can score. I think this weekend's performance was a little bit difficult to judge, really. The poor qualifying hampered him. The 3-place grid penalty on top of that hindered him further. And then the first pit stops were not the right call to start off with, and then he was taken out. Difficult day at the office for Antonelli, and it's 2 points to him for that. Then we come to the driver that made contact with Andrea Kimi Antonelli in Isaac Hadjar, and we can say it correctly, of course, because I was watching Channel 4 commentary, who know how to say drivers' names.
My F1 debut came courtesy of Minardi back in 2002, drafted in to replace drivers even worse than myself. Sadly, a full season wouldn't materialise until 5 years later, and even then it was back with another backmarker team.
And there we have it, Anthony Davison of the week 2, Isaac Hadjar. That's how you say his name. That is how you say his name, David Croft. Are you listening? Go watch the Channel 4 commentary yourself, David. You will know. But yes, honestly, it's been a pleasure to not listen to David Croft this week, and I had to put up with him for free practice sessions, got to be honest. But then the free practice 3 qualifying and the race, of course, I have watched on Channel 4, and it has been bliss. It's been lovely. Been lovely not to hear that fucking idiot. But we're talking about Isaac Hadjar, of course we are, and it has to be of the week. I've just seen he was blind, couldn't see the car ahead, and yet that's unfortunate, that's racing, but has to be awarded of the week for the amount of damage that he caused that RB car. Off at Cops was not great, took Antonelli out of the race as well. I know it was all inadvertent, I know it wasn't meant. He's under investigation post-race, of course, so may receive a grid penalty as well in the race, following a couple of weeks' time at Spa, of course. I think it would be harsh if they were to give him a grid drop for that, because the conditions were so treacherous, and we saw on the onboard we were blind. So you imagine sitting like from there to that down there, which is at Hadjar's actual eye line. Must have been even harder. So yeah, a difficult day at the office for Hadjar. Has to be an of the week. I hope it doesn't result in a grid drop, but if it's a 3-place grid penalty, then I can't really argue with that. But yeah, difficult day at the office for RB as a whole. Both cars were damaged early on in the race. No points scored, while some of their rivals score some big points. And yeah, of the week 2, Isaac Hadjar. Then we come to the second of the Stake Kick Me Up the Arse Saubers. What a tale of 2 fortunes. It's Gabriele Bortoleto.
My time in F1 might have been brief, but I had some spectacular moments. Most notably, crashing in the pit lane in Canada whilst pitting for a new front wing has to be up there.
And there we have it of the week 2, Gabriele Bortoleto. Of course, sadly for him, it was just a difficult weekend overall, really, wasn't it? It really was. A tale of 2 fortunes, very much so, for the Stake Kick Me Up the Arse Salvage squad. Bortoleto just struggled all weekend long. He had a 720 pirouette in FP1, coming out of Cops, lost the rear. Zoom, 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 round, round, round we went. Thankfully managed to point it in the right direction and keep going. Flat spotter tyres, of course, on that car, but that's practice. He didn't crash, but it was more luck than judgment that he didn't. Free practice 3 had another moment where the rear of the car snapped on him coming out of the Maggots-Beckett's complex, and he rotated round, hit one of the sausage curbs sideways, which broke the front left suspension at the end of the free practice 3 session. They got it ready for qualifying, of course. Great effort by the Sauber squad there. And then the race itself, unfortunately, starting from 16th on the grid, he elected to pit and go onto the soft tyre compound, or was he on the mediums? Either way, he pitted for slicks, and then on those slick tyres, unfortunately, he had a couple of pirouettes and then pirouetted it off into the wall, damaged his rear wing, had to stop on track as you're not allowed to take a dangerous car round the circuit anymore, which is utter fucking bollocks, isn't it? If you can keep that car in the race, keep it in the race. The rear wing had already sort of fallen off anyway and was in a safe place, so yeah, it was a shame. It was a shame for Bortoleto, but it has to be an of the week for him. Look at where his teammate finished. Okay, he was put on the alternate strategy, shall we say, where he pitted at the end of the formation lap and was on the wrong strategy from there. So it would have been an uphill battle, but he still could have got a couple of points from that race had it all gone right from there on. There was so many drivers that weren't out the equation. But yeah, unfortunately, he's spun on his soft tyres, slick tyres even, mediums I think they were. Damaged the rear wing and retired from the race. So yeah, a couple of pirouettes, bit of damage this weekend, and of course no points on the board. But wasn't it lovely to hear him come over the radio to congratulate Hulkenberg after him crossing the line in P3? Hulk, it's Gabby, congratulations mate, you're a fucking legend. Like, well done mate. Like, I appreciate that, I respect that. Shows they've got a lot of respect between them, and it was nice to see him celebrate the double points finish in Austria last time out. They're going to celebrate collectively the podium for Hulkenberg together, but Bortoleto, had he just got his race pace a little bit together, had they maybe not put him on those slick tyres, had he not spun on those slick tyres and retired from the race, maybe it could have been a couple of points for Bortoleto once again. But unfortunately his race was cut short due to his own mistake. And of the week to Bortoleto, I'm gutted I've had to give him one, but it was deserved. Next up we come to Liam Lawson in the RB. Another retirement of the race, of course, out on lap numero un. Due to contact with Esti Bestie Ocon. I personally don't think it was Ocon's fault. I think it was a total racing incident. So you had, of course, Yuki Tsunoda up the inside of Ocon. Ocon was trying to battle with him, and then Lawson tried to sweep round the outside of them. He clearly didn't know that Tsunoda was on the inside of Ocon, so he sort of sweeped in and cut in, and it caused rear wheel to front wheel contact, and that ripped the suspension off the back of the RB car, unfortunately, and retired on the spot. Difficult day at the office, out in Q1 when that car was looking like it had some mighty pace this weekend, and out before the race even began, stuck in the danger zone in that mid-pack and struggled as a result. Contact out the race, disqualified anyway on the crawl room, and of course will remain that way, but once again another poor showing from Liam Lawson in that second RB. And last but by no means least, we come to Franco Colapinto, unable to take the start of the race, sadly, due to the car being stuck in gear. He was a pit lane starter. They elected to change a load of parts overnight, components, engine, gearbox, etc. Because they may as well, because he crashed in quali 1, so of course lined up last on the grid anyway, so they elected for a pit lane start. Then the car got stuck in gear, which I heard rumours just before I came recording this, that car being stuck in gear was driver error. How? How is that a thing? How is there a possibility that there's a button on a Formula 1 car where the drivers can get it stuck in a gear? Not convinced by that. Not convinced by that at all. I think that's bullshit. I think they're trying to cover for their own fucking failings. But yeah, Franco Colapinto, heavily rumoured that he will not be at Spa in a couple of weeks' time, and it will be Valtteri Bottas taking his place. Like a fucking revolving door, isn't it? It's ridiculous. But Franco Colapinto avoids an of the week for the fact he couldn't get into the race. I'm not convinced it's driver error that a car can get stuck in gear. Not convinced at all. Unless he fried the clutch or something, but I think he knows how to drive the car in that aspect. So yeah, the crash in qualifying 1 was unfortunate. The fact he had to line up at the back of the grid was unfortunate. Pit lane start, well, it makes no difference. Keeps you out of danger, doesn't it? Car stuck in gear, couldn't make the start. There you go. 1 point. 1 point to Colapinto, and he can thank me for it. Difficult day at the office once again, and might be the last time we talk about Colapinto, especially if it's going to be Valtteri Bottas returning to Formula 1 at Alpine again. But yeah, what a difficult second car this Alpine is. It's like the second Red Bull, isn't it? You don't want to be in it. You don't want to be in it. So everything, guys, those were the runners and riders of the British Grand Prix from Silverstone. Let me know down in the comment section, just go any drivers too high, any too low. The updated standings with the scores I've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is right now. Right now. Look at that. Look at that. Nico Hulkenberg making waves. Unbelievable stuff, but he deserved massive bonus points for what he has achieved. 239 races, and he has finally secured a podium in Formula 1. Bravo, bravo, Nico. He deserves all the praise. If no one likes it, tough. As you can see there, Yuki Tsunoda, he will either be disqualified or on a final warning. Not quite sure what I am doing there. I forget. I'm very busy, man. But yeah, unbelievable stuff. And as you can see, the rest of the order, the pecking order, is really closing up. It's hotting up. With 12 races in, we've got half the season left to go. There's a lot can happen on this series, so don't say it's over just yet. We'll take a look at the team standings as well then. I can, of course, manipulate this independently, but I am not going to. I'm going to leave it exactly as it is. I don't think any drivers really did too bad for their teams. I don't think any drivers or teams did too badly for their drivers. I think it was just a difficult day at the office for some, and some didn't get it quite right. But that's racing, isn't it? You win and you lose together, and I'm not awarding any plus or minus points to any of the drivers or teams this time around. A massive thanks as always goes out to Dan Bartlett, of course, for providing me with the scoreboard that you saw on your screen there, for the driver icons in the corner of your screen, and for the intro as well. Without him, this series was more pointless than it already is. And who can forget Mr. Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for providing me with the of the weeks that you don't necessarily know, but you know you're going to love them. You just know it, don't you? Thank you so much as always, Dave. Really appreciate it, buddy. So I'll see you all in a couple of weeks' time for the Spa-Francorchamps Belgium Grand Prix. Looking forward to that. Hopefully another hot, spicy race ahead of us. Maybe some changeable conditions as well, of course. You know Spa has its own microclimate. Could be sunny in one half of the circuit, pissing it down with rain in the other. It could really throw up a few surprises, and I hope it does. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.